The world's most powerful and sophisticated spec racing series has arrived in Toronto. The grace and commanding drive of the Porsche GT3 911 takes center stage in Canada's largest city.
The concrete walls that surround this Indy circuit are no match for the dominating rule of the Porsche 911. Canada's top road racers take on the streets and look to uproot Scott Hargrove's stranglehold on the championship. The Castrol Pfaff pilot's drive has been nearly flawless. Today, he looks to continue control while a stable of contenders look to challenge. Welcome to the 7th race of the 2017 Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada, presented by Yokohama. We're in Toronto for a midsummer stop of Canada's premier road racing series for Porsche 911s. I'm Dave Bradley, along with 2016 series champion Daniel Morad. Todd Lewis will be trackside for us this afternoon, and Toronto's the 4th stop on the 2017 schedule. Joining us for this round is a newcomer, Gianmarco Raimondo, in a Gold Class 911. He turned some heads in practice a little bit earlier on this weekend, but Daniel, how does Toronto different from the other tracks that this series visits?
Well, yeah, Toronto is different. I mean, for one, you have concrete walls surrounding the circuit, so it's very unforgiving. One mistake can end in tears.
Well, let's take a look at this 11-turn, 2.8 kilometer street circuit. Good passing spot going into turn number 1.
Yeah, turn 1 is probably one of the most opportune passing areas on the circuit, but you have to make sure you get the braking right. It's quite bumpy.
Into turn number 3, the end of the long straightaway, another good one.
Yes, it is. It's the biggest braking zone on the track and quite slippery over that concrete patch.
And a new passing zone is this one in turn number 8.
Yeah, and they've actually repaved the surface, but you do get into that concrete at the apex.
Scott Hargrove in the number 9 Castrol Pfaff entry has won 5 out of 6 races so far this season. His team, the driver, the car, has been almost flawless all season long. Hargrove has been used to spraying the champagne in 2017. The driver from Tsawwassen, BC, has a 14-point lead over Ottawa's Zach Robichon.
Robichon has been picking up steam lately with that win in Watkins Glen. It was quite a dominant victory over Hargrove in tricky conditions, actually.
And we'll take a look at the rest of the top 10. You see Michael De Quesada and the rookie Patrick Dussault actually tied for 3rd spot. Still 50 points back, but still a lot of racing left in the 2017 season. Closest to Hargrove, though, is Robichon, and Todd caught up with him earlier.
Zach Robichon, you have been chasing Scott Hargrove almost all year.
Yeah.
What did you learn in race 1 that you can translate into race 2?
Yeah, I think the big thing at this track, you know, it's so many walls and stuff. The big thing you sort of have to tell yourself is you almost have to risk it and say, look, if I touch the wall, I touch the wall, and take that extra little risk. It's not about setup or, you know, even your line. It's all about just going that extra little bit and risking it. So I think, you know, Scott's willing to do that, and I just got to kind of button down and do the same.
Robichon has been right there consistently on the podium, but he's looking to climb up one more step here in Toronto. You heard him talking about taking more risks. And 2 weeks ago in Watkins Glen, things didn't go as all had hoped. With more on that, here's Todd Lewis.
Yeah, guys, it was a scary multi-car crash in race number 1 at the Glen that had enormous consequences for a number of drivers and teams. It appears as Trenton Estep was going through the S's, he had contact with the wall, and that set off the chain reaction pileup. Ore Fidani suffered minor injuries, but his car was a write-off. He hopes to return to Trois-Rivières. Remo Risciuti also expects to be back at Trois-Rivières after suffering some minor injuries. Max Tullman, extensive car damage, some injuries. He's awaiting parts from Germany. And most seriously injured, Etienne Bourgeois suffered a fractured hip, a fractured sternum, some broken ribs. We send our best to all the drivers and teams, and we hope to see them back at the track soon.
And here this afternoon, you can see the drivers have been given the command to start their engines as Scott Hargrove fires up on pole. Love the sound of these flat 6s coming to life on the front straightaway. They're rumbling, just begging to be driven fast.
And they sound especially good between these walls here in the Toronto Indy Circuit.
We'll have a number of onboard looks here today. Riding on board with the 34 of Sean McKay, Marte RV in the 08. The McDonald's-sponsored entry will also have an onboard look. As the cars roll off, we'll take a look at the starting lineup here this afternoon. And it's a solid field of Porsche 911 GT3 entries here for the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Canada by Yokohama. Here on the streets of Toronto at Exhibition Place. And on pole, as we mentioned, Scott Hargrove. Alongside of him, his combatant all season, the 98 of Zachary Robichon. Michael De Quesada drives number 31. He'll start to the inside of row number 2. And there's Patrick Dussault in the 77. They're tied in the point standings, remember. Tim Sanderson in the 07 and Marco Cerrone in the 88. They make up row number 3. Roman DeAngelis, the 78, and Gianmarco Raimondo, a couple of Gold Cup cars making up row number 4. Sean McKagan, the 34, and Peter Balget in the 15. That's row number 5 here this afternoon. Taking a look back to row number 6, Martin Harvey in the 08, and Jim Walker behind the wheel of the 71 this afternoon. And rounding out the field, the 37 of Ed Killeen from Buffalo, New York.
And in this race, too, they start on new tires. So at this street circuit, you only have one warm-up lap. So they have to work really hard to try to scrub those new tires in and get as much heat in the tires as possible. And
how difficult is it to build heat on these tires when you have concrete patches in the corners?
Well, I mean, that's it. You have concrete patch, very, very low adhesion circuit. So right now you can see them weaving back and forth, trying to brake and accelerate, trying to drive as much energy in those Yokohama tires.
One thing it does is makes for an exciting race for the fans, as those Yokohama tires will stick the best in the first few laps, and that's where the cars will be the tightest. They bunch up now through the final turns, looking for the green flag off of turn number 11. Scott Hargrove is on the outside of turn number 11. He'll be on the inside of turn number 1. Zachary Robichon is there. John Charalampos from Mundo Media with the green flag, and we're underway.
You can see De Quesada already down the inside of Robichon. Good move. Let's see if he can make it stick.
It is rough in turn number 1. Robichon trying to hang on the outside, but it looks like De Quesada will have position out of 2 and down the backstretch.
Robichon already weaving. He's trying to warm up those tires, also trying to break the draft down Lakeshore.
That's a huge straightaway down Lakeshore Boulevard into the braking zone of turn number 3. You see Cerrone to the inside. Patrick Dussault challenging him in the number 77.
You can see these cars are wiggling around. They're struggling for heat in these tires. You saw Hargrove weaving down the straight. Really smart bit of driving there, trying to get as much heat in these Yokohama tires as possible to open up a gap early on.
Quick ride on board the downtown Porsche 07 of Tim Sanderson, and look at how far Hargrove has been able to open up a gap now on the Porsche Center Oakville number 31 of Michael De Quesada.
You heard Robichon early on. He mentioned Hargrove is taking all the risks here, and you can see that in this first lap. He's pushing the car to its limits.
You can see the Gold Cup car by the yellow headlights as you saw Roman DeAngelis take a look as we ride on board with the 98 Mark Motors entry of Zachary Robichon. Into turn 1. Look at how rough it is there. I mean, we talked a little bit about it on lap number 1, but if you go to make a pass, you can really have your braking altered because the wheels aren't on the ground all the time.
Yeah, turn 1 is one of those corners where you need to have all the confidence in the world to just commit to the brake pedal, even over those bumps. And with cold tires, it's extremely tricky to get the car slowed down in time.
Robichon took the risk that he needed to, and he moves himself up into second spot as they work their way through turn number 3.
You can just see how slippery it is out there. I mean, Tim is just working that wheel. Tim Sanderson for downtown Porsche. He's struggling, and you can see also Robichon weaving and wobbling into the brake zone of turn 8.
Yeah, he's not content to just let Scott Hargrove command things this early on in the race. He knows he has something in there to challenge the driver of the Castrol Pfaff Porsche. Youngster Roman DeAngelis, he too fighting the steering wheel. And again, the paddle shifter, so you never have to take your hands off the wheel. That's a good thing when you're wrestling a car on the streets of Toronto.
Yeah, especially on the streets of Toronto. You could just see how bumpy it was. I mean, turn 11 is one of the bumpiest sections on the circuit. They actually, last year, changed the configuration of the pit lane, so they moved it from one side of the track to the other now because of the construction of the hotel into turn 1. So it's really narrow, really bumpy, really challenging.
And there you see Patrick Dussault taking a look underneath the 88 of Marco Cerrone. Can't quite make it stick. Full We'll take another look at the original start here. It went to a land rush pretty quickly. You see Robichon way up on the outside, and there's Michael De Quesada tucked in behind Hargrove, doing exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah, you know, Robichon looked like he fell asleep a little bit on the start there, and De Quesada capitalized on that opportunity.
I love the sound of that downshift, and look at how close they got in turn number 1. Of course, De Quesada went on to hang on to second. Robichon has once again regained that position and regained the chase of Scott Hargrove, who continues to lead here in downtown Toronto. A wonderful day for a race. A lot of fans sticking around to watch this one. Hargrove leads Robichon in the early going. The 7th race of the 2017 Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama and TSN is brought to you by Porsche. So still Scott Hargrove in control here as we take a look a little bit deeper in the field. Cerrone and Patrick Dussault have been battling hard. The Mark Motors entry, the number 88 of Cerrone, just ahead of the Lozo Autosport Porsche Rib Sud entry of Dussault. That's a battle for 4th spot. And for Dussault, he came off a 3rd place, a podium effort in race number 6 here on the streets of Toronto, so his confidence is at an all-time high.
Yeah, you can see Dussault is really trying hard to get by Cerrone here. I mean, it's very tricky. Like we mentioned, turn 1 and into turn 3 at the end of Lakeshore Boulevard. Those are the 2 opportunities that he's going to have to overtake Marco Cerrone here.
See the 78 of Roman DeAngelis. He's holding on 7th spot, battling with Tim Sanderson. But here goes Raimondo looking to the inside of the 34 of Sean McKay. A Gold Cup car versus a Platinum Cup car, and there is a little bit of a horsepower difference.
There is. There's about a 25 horsepower difference between the 2 cars. So you could really see that come into play there with Sean McKay accelerating around the outside of Raimondo.
For spot changing hands, the Porsche Lozo number 77 of Patrick Dussault taking it over ahead of the Masters entry of Marco Cerrone. And coming into this event, Cerrone a comfortable lead in that Masters class.
Yeah, Cerrone's been doing a great job, and last year he was on a roll. At the end of the season, Tim Sanderson came on strong, but Cerrone back in his comfortable spot, leading the Masters division.
And you look just in behind this one as Cerrone hits the bumps and bounces through turn number 8. DeAngelis still battling with the 07 of Sanderson. Sanderson in 6th spot, trying to hold off the teenager, really. I mean, Roman DeAngelis really has turned some heads. The man from Bell River, Ontario. I say man, just a teenager, but he's learned a lot.
He's high beaming him. He's really trying hard. And you know, Roman, you can see with the yellow headlights, he's in the gold class car. He's trying everything he can to get by Tim Sanderson. I don't think it will happen down Lakeshore Boulevard because of the horsepower difference. Tim's obviously in the platinum car, Roman in the gold car.
That's riding on board Roman DeAngelis. And how much is Tim Sanderson looking in his rearview mirror down that straightaway?
I think quite a bit. He just locked up going into turn 3, so he has his eyes full. His mirrors are full right now of the young teenager.
But Sanderson, as you mentioned, has been doing this a long time. He's in the Masters class. He doesn't get frazzled very easily.
No, Tim has a lot of experience. Last year, Tim was my teammate. So I've gotten to work with him side by side. I know, how strong he is mentally. I don't know if this will phase him. Right now, he's doing a great job staying ahead of Roman.
And he's from nearby Pickering, Ontario, not too far outside of Toronto, so he'll have a lot of family and friends in the crowd. He'll want to put on a good show for them. There is your race leader, though, Scott Hargrove. You can see the lead, about a 1.5 seconds now over Zachary Robichon. Michael De Quesada having a great showing. Sitting in 3rd spot, Patrick Dussault, again solidly inside the top 5. And rounding out the Fast 5 so far, Marco Cerrone in the number 88.
Yeah, Robichon had a rough opening lap, but once he got by De Quesada again, he's really set his eyes on Hargrove. So he's definitely putting on a charge now, and he has Hargrove within his sights.
These cars fly down the back straight, or Lakeshore Boulevard, here at the street circuit at Exhibition Place. The big tailwing
It's huge. You can also adjust the wing angle. That's predetermined before you go into the race, so there's a certain level of adjustment. So you can also see a little bit of a change between different cars. Some cars might have a higher top speed, but more grip in the middle of the high-speed corners.
And we've seen from the onboard shots, too, these cars equipped with a splitter on the front. Same deal?
Yeah, the splitter is actually fixed. You can't adjust the height. So that's actually checked in the technical inspection after the race and before. So you can see Roman just ducking down the inside. You want to make sure you don't take that splitter off because it is very important. It might look like a little piece of plastic, but if you lose that splitter, you lose all front downforce, and the thing just doesn't want to turn. It'll just turn into a plow. And
these cars rely a lot on mechanical grip anyway, so you take away a little bit of the downforce you get, that really hurts in the long run.
It does. I mean, the Yokohama tires, they provide an incredibly high level of mechanical grip, but you do rely so much on that little splitter at the front and the large rear wing behind you.
And we talked a little bit about the horsepower difference in the Platinum class and the Gold Cup as we ride on board with DeAngelis. He is in a Gold Cup car, and you can see Sanderson able to set sail down the front or back straightaway. How much is that horsepower difference?
Yeah, it's a 25 horsepower difference, but it's more so the torque coming off of turn 1 and turn 2. That's where it's really, you're going to see the stretch, that gap open up. Down the back straight, I mean, you'll open up the gap. It's maybe 3-4 kilometers an hour quicker by the end in terms of terminal velocity.
Scott Hargrove in the Pfaff Castrol entry. The number 9 has been your race leader since the drop of the green. So far, he's had a very, very good weekend, winning race number 6. But look who is coming. The number 98 of Zachary Robichaux has found another gear. Robichaux is reeling him in, and at this point, I mean, Hargrove is a veteran in this series and many others. You see him adjusting his seatbelts there. Is he rattled looking in his mirror and seeing Robichaux that close?
Well, Hargrove just turned his fastest lap of the race, but he is still 2/10 slower than Robichaux. And what happens is when you feel that pressure, you start tightening those belts down. It's go time.
Robichaux, the focus on his eyes. And he's focused right on the back bumper of that number 9.
He smells the exhaust. He smells it now. He's getting close.
Still that battle there between Sanderson and DeAngelis. A Platinum Cup for Sanderson, a Gold Cup for DeAngelis, but they're so very, very close here on the street circuit at Exhibition Place in downtown Toronto. But the whole group still chasing the number 9 of Scott Hargrove. Welcome back to the Toronto Exhibition Grounds. I'm Dave Bradley along with Daniel Morad. Todd Lewis is trackside. Race number 7 of the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. And so far we've had a number of battles spread out around the circuit. There you get a good look at Sean McKeag from Guildford, Ontario, just north of Toronto, and Martin Harvey from Berthierville, Quebec in the 08. That's a battle for 9th spot right now.
You can see Harvey, he's chasing McKeag down Lakeshore. These guys are both in Platinum cars, so there's going to be no difference in terms of top speed. The only thing is you can see their rear wing angle. They look both pretty trimmed out, and you typically do trim the cars out because each corner is really slow here. You don't typically use that downforce. If you have a higher speed corner, you'd want to increase that rear wing angle and maybe increase the rake of the car, and what I mean by rake is the front and rear ride height difference. So you'd have the front of the car lower than the rear. That would create more of a wedge-like, shape, so that would create more downforce.
Interesting stuff. Looks like DeAngelis has picked up right where he left off before the break, and it's right on that back bumper of Sanderson. He's going to get tired of looking at that car by the end of this event.
He is. That's a battle for 6th right there. And I mean, the main difference, because I mentioned earlier, the Platinum class car has a lot more torque off the corner. And what that means, he's going to start burning those rear tires. So as he accelerates off of turn 1, you'll start to see, depending on how he's set up and how the tire pressures are, if the tire pressures get too high or the tire tent gets too high, you'll start to see the rear of the car wiggling around. That's when Roman's going to have the best chance to overtake.
And the car that Roman is driving is a proven entry. This was the car that Zachary Robichon drove to 2 overall victories just 1 year ago, so it's really no slouch.
Hey, you don't have to remind me. Robichon, he did come out with some great victories. I mean, won in round 2 in 2016, which I remember very well, and won at the end of the season. But at the end of the year, in 2016, Robichon came on incredibly strong. They actually put a new motor in that car for Road Atlanta when he came down to the U.S. to race in the GT3 Cup U.S. Series.
Did very well there as well, and now DeAngelis has found a home inside the cockpit and is as comfortable in it as Robichon was in 2016. Hargrove has opened up his lead at the front of the field, though. It's now 1.7 seconds over Zachary Robichon. Michael De Quesada comfortably in 3rd spot, not being pressured but from behind, but not really close enough to mount a challenge to Zachary Robichon at this point.
Yeah, well, De Quesada had a bit of a rough ride the day before, so yeah, he's definitely taken a step back. You can see last lap 14.4, so quite a bit off of the top 2 guys. Hargrove, he just put down a flyer. I mean, he's feeling the pressure, but he's used to that. He's comfortable where he is. He's comfortable in these streets in Toronto, and I mean, he's just flying out there now.
Well, you mentioned that rough ride. Let's elaborate on that just a little bit. Caught the outside retaining wall. Again, we talked about that off the top of the show. You make one small mistake and it can penalize you so much. He caught the wall, but the Allegra Motorsports Group did a wonderful job getting that car back together.
Yeah, as always, and Roman just ducking down the inside again. Not going to happen this time, but yeah, Allegra Motorsports, I mean, I drive with them day in, day out. I race in the IMSA WeatherTech series with them, also in a Porsche 911 GT3R, and I know they're one of the best out there. Look at him high beaming.
He's flashing. He thinks he's on the 401 right now, going through Toronto, trying to get inside the head of Tim Sanderson, giving him the high beams down the front straightaway, but so far it's not really having the impact he wants it to.
Yeah, his mom made some dinner. He's late to get home for that soup, so he's in a hurry. Tim's in his way right now.
And there you see Tim headed to the outside of turn number 3. He's not even taking a defensive line at this point. So comfortable. Problems, though, in the 71. That's Jim Walker from Pennsylvania Crossways on the exit of turn number 10. The Porsche Center North Toronto backed entry pulls to the inside of the track, but he's in a tough spot there. That's nearly on the racing line as the leader comes through.
Yeah, that's a really bad spot to stop. That's just around the exit of turn 10. It's a blind corner off cambered, so it's pretty tricky with some bumps thrown in there just to add some flavor. Michael De Quesada just misses.
Look at the corner worker, though, as we'll take another look at what happened originally. Comes flying through turn 10 and...
Yeah, I mean, he just hit the bump and got on throttle. He lost the rear of the car.
But the corner worker is standing right in front of him. He gives him the okay, and then backs into the wall on the 3-point turn, does Jim Walker. But at least he's in communication with the track official, telling him when the track is clear. There he tells him to wait because the car was coming through. Now Walker will put it right to steering lock and rub the wall just a little bit. But the 71 is down and away. The Porsche Center North Toronto entry still on track. No full course caution, believe it or not.
Yeah, no full course caution, but that car will definitely be visiting the body shop at Porsche Center North Toronto after this one.
Some damage to the back end, a little damage to the front end, but Scott Hargrove continues to lead, and the one who would have liked to see a full course caution, the 98 of Zachary Robichon, still 1.6 seconds adrift in 2nd spot.
Yeah, the gap seemed to open up a little bit. Robichon was on a bit of a tear earlier on in the race. He reeled that gap in around 1 second, so Hargrove is doing a great job now. You can see their lap times are just matching each other lap per lap.
This has to be one of the most entertaining battles on the track right now. You've got Tim Sanderson in the Platinum class, you've got the Gold class car of DeAngelis, and now he'll finally make it stick. Turn 11, that's for 6th spot. Give it to the youngster, Roman DeAngelis.
That's a great move. It's a tough spot. When you're watching from this point of view, it looks a lot wider than when you're actually in the cockpit of that car. It's incredibly tight on the exit.
And his best spot on the track was through 9, 10, and 11. That's where he was gaining the most ground. But I don't know if you saw from that last shot, just in the rearview mirror now of the 07 is Gianmarco Raimondo, who actually finished ahead of DeAngelis in the Saturday event here, but now he's chasing these two as well.
So
Sanderson now tucked in behind the 78 of DeAngelis, and he has some fans in his corner. Good folks from downtown Porsche watching. We'll return here on TSN. Welcome back to the streets of Toronto in the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. There's a look at your race leader, Scott Hargrove, in the Pfaff Castrol number 9, the Mark Motors number 98 of Zachary Robichon. This is about as close as he's been all race long. Just over a second adrift in second spot.
Yeah, typically, Mark Motors, I've seen their car last year. I raced against their car last year. It comes on strong at the end of the race. They always set that car up so it comes alive right in the last laps of this race. So expect to see Robichon closing up that gap right onto Hargrove's bumper.
You can see in the visor obviously up on Zachary Robichon. It's a hot day here in Toronto today. Despite a lack of sunshine, we're threatening some rain earlier today. Peter Balger making a move underneath the 71 of Walker. But how much does that take a toll? How hot does it get inside these cars?
It's very hot. Some of these drivers come from open wheel background where you have the wind blowing on your helmet, going through the vents of your helmet. Inside the cockpit of a car, it's not like your conventional road car where you have air conditioning. You have air from outside. You can see two little holes in the front, on the hood of the cars. One of those holes is for ventilation to the driver's face. So you essentially have air from outside filtered, blowing on your face. That's all you have. Some drivers have an air conditioning system, a cool box inside the car, which connects to your helmet. You'll see Hargrove wearing one of those. I actually wear one myself now. It's incredibly hot. That's the toughest part about driving these cars. The mental fatigue is, it's incredible.
Raimundo there in the 76 is starting to close the gap on the Harry Rosen 07 of Tim Sanderson. And as we mentioned, Raimundo had a great first outing in this car. He's no stranger to motorsports. He might be a stranger to the Porsche GT3 Cup, but he's run in Europe in the F3 series. He's also run in GP2 as well. A lot of open wheel stuff, not much of the closed wheel variety, but he seems to be taking it like a fish to water.
And like I mentioned earlier, guys coming from open wheel, it's a little bit more refreshing. You have the fresh air blowing onto your helmet, going through the vents. So it's a bit of a different challenge for Raimundo here. It's incredibly hot, like I mentioned. Mental fatigue is going to come into this. A 45-minute race is very difficult in a cup car. Sprint racing series, single make format. You're on the limit. You're pushing on a knife edge all the time.
And you're essentially waiting for a driver to mess up, aren't you? Because it is that single make. All the cars are equal.
At a track like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, it's very hard. Everyone more or less has a lot of testing there, a lot of laps around the track. When you come to a street circuit like the Toronto Indy, you basically practice on Friday and then you race on Saturday and Sunday. So you have limited laps. You have to really be on the limit as quick as possible, but you can't afford to make mistakes.
Teenager from Tampa, Florida, sitting in third spot. That's Michael De Quesada. We talked about drivers who have come a long way, and that is definitely one of the most improved drivers here in 2017.
He definitely is. I know firsthand. I drive with him occasionally in the IMSA WeatherTech series. He drives in the GT Daytona class with me. At CTMP, we shared a car. He is very fast. He's caught on quite a bit. He's 10 years younger than me, but he's still fighting. He's just ringing it out.
He's not sitting back, though. That's good. It's good to see him fighting because it's easier to rein a driver in than it is to light a fire under them.
Yeah, you see Dussault there back and forth. He has De Quesada in his sights, and that's why Michael's also seeing that. He's seeing that 77 car in his rearview mirror, so he's getting the hurry up from his team.
Raimundo now battling the 07 of Sanderson. We saw him coming, and he's giving a little flash of the gold headlights. A battle for 7th spot now. Will he make a move in turn number 3? Again, it's a Gold Cup versus a Platinum Cup. Sanderson in a Platinum car and Raimundo in a Gold Cup car, but that too, a very, very good entry campaigned by Etienne Bourget just 1 year ago.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed is he found that high beam button really quickly.
It's not something you see often amongst Platinum Cup drivers. When they're racing each other, they don't very often flash the high beams, but these two youngsters in the Gold Cup class, they love it.
And I mean, you've seen people flash their high beams before in past races, even during this race. What that does, you're trying to unsettle the car in front of you. Typically, you use it as a tool. It's a bit of a cheap shot, but when you're in a gold car and you're going up against a platinum car, you have to use every tool in your toolbox to get by. So, you know, at the opportune time, if you click that high beam button, you can maybe unsettle the car in front. But Tim, he's a wily old fox out here in front. He's a veteran of the series. I don't think headlights are going to phase him.
As a driver, though, does it ever catch your eye when you're driving along? You see it in your mirror and you're like, wait, what was that?
Well, I mean, the past few years, I've had drivers high beam me. I just typically turn my rear view mirror up a little bit and focus on the road ahead. I mean, if you hit your marks, it's like I said, a single make series. If the team set the car up well for you, you hit your marks, don't make any mistakes, you really shouldn't be in any danger. But yeah, typically for me, I just try to keep my eyes on the track ahead of me. Always be mindful of the car behind, but I mean, headlights, they can't hurt you.
As we ride on board Sanderson, he's still trying to hold off Gianmarco Raimondo, but still Hargrove is out in front. Welcome back as we ride on board your race leader, Scott Hargrove. He's led since the initial drop of the green flag here on the streets of Toronto. Focused at work as he looks to put a lap on the 08 of Martin Harvey, who's currently in 10th spot. That's how dominant the number 9 car has been.
Yeah, Hargrove, he is very, very comfortable here. There's no cutting it any other way. He's comfortable at the Toronto Indy. Last year, he had a great performance. I have to give it to him. I mean, he basically, he was the class of the field. You can just see he's cutting through lap traffic. He actually made a very important move there, separating himself from Robichon by putting that lap car between them.
Martin Harvey, as we mentioned, sitting in 10th spot, moving up from the Gold Cup to the Platinum Cup here in 2017. He's got the GoPro on his dash, so he can use it. That's something that drivers use to coach themselves, too, isn't it? I mean, they can go back and review their own footage and see where they missed and where they can be better.
Yeah, typically, you see Robichon just slicing through there. That was tight. But typically, you mount that GoPro on the roll bar so you can see some of your driving inputs with the steering wheel and your feet, so you can see the pedals a little bit. But up on the dash, that's more so just, you know, you can see what's happening during the race. Typically, I always mount it behind so I can see what's going on. I like to see the broad view of what's happening in the cockpit.
Well, Raimondo is seeing a lot of that back bumper, the 07. The Harry Rosen-backed entry of Tim Sanderson. That sounded like a rev limiter.
Yeah, you can see them. They're buzzing off the rev limiter.
Battle for 7th spot, Raimondo. This is where DeAngelis was a little bit better than Sanderson in through 8, 9, 10. And we head for turn 11.
You can see Raimondo aggressive. He got a bit loose there on the entry to turn number 9.
He's pushing, though, licking his lips in the number 76 as he chases the 07 of Sanderson. And again, here's where you mentioned tires could come into play. The extra torque, the extra horsepower on the Platinum car, Tim Sanderson may have chewed those Yokohama tires just a little bit more than the Gold Cup car of Raimondo.
Yeah, you can see he's flashing his headlights. I mean, he sniffs it. He knows it's there. But just before, you saw Raimondo, he was actually getting loose. So tire management actually plays a big part in these races. They're 45 minutes, but it's an aggressive tire compound from Yokohama. They're incredibly fast, high mechanical grip, but on the other hand, they're very soft tires, so they're meant to last 45 minutes. They're not like your road tire where they're supposed to last you a summer or 2 summers. These are supposed to last 45 minutes, and that's it.
And we're 2/3 of the way through this race. Just 14 minutes left to go in this 45-minute timed race. A good look at the number 78 Mark Motors entry of Roman DeAngelis, sitting in 6th spot. Handed the keys to that ride the week before his 16th birthday. What a birthday present that was! And Raimondo into the wall off turn 11. Big damage to that car.
Yeah, that's unlucky for him. I mean, he had a good run going. I mean, you can see it was only his second race here, so lack of experience maybe came into play. Like I mentioned as well, incredibly hot inside that cockpit. Let's see what happened here.
This is turn number 11. The white car is when we're watching. A wiggle.
Yeah, it looked like a lapse of concentration. I mean, he was just wide of the apex, tried getting to throttles to salvage it, but just clapped into the wall on the outside.
And there's a good example of no runoff areas. You make a small mistake. That could have been his first mistake the entire race. And unfortunately, it penalizes him, breaks some rear suspension parts, and his day's done.
Yeah, it's game over. There's no runoff here. You make a mistake, and like I said at the top of the show, it ends in tears.
The number 9, Scott Hargrove, is the one smiling right now, though. He is handily in the lead ahead of the number 98 of Zachary Robichon. Those two have been in that position for quite a few races so far in 2017. You see the number 34 of Sean McKay just ahead of the leader. He's in 8th position as the leaders will put pressure on him, likely down the back straightaway. That looks to be the place where they'll catch him.
Yeah, we just saw Hargrove on board through the last section. That's somewhere where he is very fast. He's got that last section of S's nailed to perfection. I remember last year going against him, we were pretty much matched like for like everywhere around the circuit, except for that last turn. He always seemed to have a little bit more on me. He was comfortable throwing it over those bumps through turn 11.
Good look at the Furpal Pfaff Motorsports entry, the 34 of Sean McKay. And again, somebody who's new to the Platinum Cup car. He raced in the Gold Cup class last year, won the championship last year, and McKay has always been a fast racer in that Gold Cup. Makes the jump to the Platinum Series this year, and he's struggling a little bit trying to get a handle, but there he is. See, a veteran, sees the leader in the rearview mirror, pulls over in the right spot and lets him go by.
Yeah, very nice move by Sean McKagan. Last year, I mean, he was in the gold class, and occasionally we would overlap him because of the split in speed between the cars, and always a gentleman. I mean, there's no other way to cut it. You can see he's jumping up and down. I mean, his head's bobbling around, but look at the focus in his eyes. Look where he's looking. I mean, it's so bumpy. Think about Canada's Wonderland. That's what he's going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, these cars do have suspension. You're looking at that thinking, well, surely the shocks and springs will take care of that. But the bumps are so bad here in some spots, especially through turn number 1. That's where Sean McKay was bouncing the worst. And that'll give you an idea of just how rough it is.
Yeah, this is, I would say, the most physically demanding circuit on the schedule because of the bumps. When you have a smooth circuit with high G-forces, let's say there's a lot of grip, it's not as bad as when you hit those bumps and you shock your muscles. You have to be really tense and hold that wheel tight.
Now it's Robichon's turn to try and put a lap on the 34 of Sean McKay. He's into the tight portion of the racetrack, though, as they head through turn number 8. Right on the back bumper now. Robichon will duck to the inside. McKay saw that again. A veteran move from the 34 as he pulls to the outside and lets the 98 go through. But that was just a tough place to catch lap traffic, as now the lead for Scott Hargrove is ballooned to 2.7 seconds.
The best laps you can see up on the board there, there's a 1 minute 12.9 versus a 1 minute 12.8 for Robichon. So Robichon is the faster of the two cars, but Hargrove is catching traffic in the opportune spot, so that's allowing him to open up a bit more of a gap to Robichon.
One of the American drivers there in the 71. We saw him a little bit earlier in quite a predicament, but Jim Walker has found his way in the Tolman Walker Racing, sponsored by Porsche Center North Toronto. Unfortunately, his teammate, Tolman, got into that big wreck in Watkins Glen and could not make the event here in Toronto, but now he's in a little bit of a battle there with Peter Balger from Maple Bay, backed by Porsche Center Victoria, and in amongst the leaders is Marcus Cironi, the 88 heads through.
Yeah, Cironi just ducked under Balger there, and you can see Balger getting out of the way of Roman DeAngelis. DeAngelis is hunting down Cironi now, so again, there's the platinum car versus the gold car. That's a battle for 5th place.
Yeah, look at DeAngelis, though. He really has spread his wings since getting by the 07 of Tim Sanderson. Let's ride on board. You hear the youngster working the throttle off the tight corners. He is chasing his teammate for 5th spot. One of the most promising young talents in Canadian road racing, Roman DeAngelis from Bell River, Ontario, is hunting down the number 71 of Jim Walker.
Yeah, Jim, you saw him earlier having that moment through turn 10 right here. You see Roman go down the inside, but Jim is just a bit hesitant in letting him by. I think he might be a little bit...
He tried to open up the inside. He's like, I'm going to give you room. Peter Balger is like, thank you very much. I'm going to take that as well. As the number 15 moves through as well in the Porsche Center Victoria entry. But DeAngelis has lost grip with the 88 of Marco Cerrone, who he was chasing earlier on. Remember when we went to break, that was the battle for 5th spot. Now he's fallen back just a little bit.
Yeah, you can't even see Marco anymore. He's checked out. So again, it's the veteran versus the youngster. He made, I guess, better. He made a better way through his traffic.
It's a street circuit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it all depends on where you catch that traffic. That's where you're going to easily get by, or maybe not so easily get by.
And sometimes it's about calculating whether you should lift off a little bit earlier in the corner before to set your competition up. So, you know, it's not all about going full attack all the time. You have to be a little bit more intelligent. And Marco Cerrone, his experience really just kicked in there, you know, as he diced through traffic.
On board with the man from Tawasin, British Columbia, and the Pfaff Castrol number 9, Scott Hargrove. He is your leader now, 3.4 seconds, almost 3.5 seconds ahead of the number 98 of Zachary Robichon.
Actually, on that last lap, it looked like Roman actually had a bit of an issue. He was 5 seconds off the pace, so I'm not sure if he got stuck behind traffic or actually he might even have an issue.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that number 78 Mark Motors entry of Roman DeAngelis as he continues to be a little bit off the pace here on the streets of Toronto. Remember, he was battling for a top 5 in the overall standings, and there he is, off the pace. That definitely issues with that car.
Yeah, you can hear that motor doesn't sound healthy. Did you hear that gargle?
Transmission problems, gearbox problems, maybe? Sounds like there's fire in the motor, but...
It sounds like it's not getting enough fuel, to be honest. That's what, it looks like it's starving for fuel, because you can see it go and then cut out.
Well, it's cutting out right now. It's quiet as it rolls to a stop. That is in turn number 4. Problems for Roman DeAngelis. Todd?
Yeah, the report on that 78 car, guys, is that they have lost fuel pressure. He's pulled off to the side trying to get it going to see if he can coax it back to pit lane, but no fuel pressure is the story.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounded like. He was driving down Lakeshore Boulevard. I mean, you heard the misfire in the engine. Luckily, I haven't had that happen to me, but you could definitely hear it was starving for fuel.
But he's in a precarious spot there. No full course caution just yet, with just over 3 minutes left to go in this one. His teammate Zachary Robichon could really use that full course caution if one were to be displayed. Scott Hargrove continues to lead by almost 4.5 seconds now, and now a full course caution. This is exactly what Zachary Robichon will want to see.
But with 3 minutes to go, can they get that car out of the way in time? That's the question I'd be asking.
That's the deal. You have to get the car out of the way, you have to get the field realigned, and then go back to green. All the while, the clock continues to tick. So the 78 sits stop. There's fire in the engine there, so he gets it going, and he'll try and head off the racetrack. And
what you can do on these cars, there's actually a secondary fuel pump or a reserve. And you can see on the dash, on the top right corner, there's 2 switches. You can flick those down and go to your reserve pumps.
And we're just hearing reports from IMSA officials. They're indicating that time will run out. This one is going to end under caution. So unfortunately for Robichon, he'll run out of time to make that last jab at the number 9 of Scott Hargrove. But all Scott Hargrove has to do now is keep up a proper pace behind that pace car, and he will win for the 6th time in 2017. As there you can see the double caution flag indicating a full course caution, and now the double checkers as the field comes through. Scott Hargrove will be able to celebrate with a couple weaves here on the front straightaway. His crew ready to join in the celebrations. Hargrove wins on the streets of Toronto. Welcome back to the Ultra 94 Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge Canada by Yokohama. The man who led every single lap today on the streets of Toronto in victory lane. Todd standing by with him. Todd?
Once again, Scott Hargrove is climbing out and thrusting those fists in the air to celebrate a victory. In the Porsche GT3 Challenge Canada, it is hugs and handshakes all around for the crew for another outstanding job. That is now 6 victories in 7 races so far this season. We talked to Scott a little bit before the race, and at times we said this had looked a little bit easy for him, as if it was all coming together nicely. But today, even though you kept the lead from start to finish, this was a hard-fought race that you had to maintain that lead.
I think you jinxed me on that being easy thing. I'm out of breath. That was a hard race. Zach was so fast in the beginning. We traded fast laps. He caught me. I would gain a little bit, and then I got lucky with the traffic. And from there on, the FAF Castrol Motorsports car was just on rails. So the second half of the race, we were perfect. Too bad we didn't get a finish under green, but hey, you know, the skies are about to open up, so probably good we ended under safety car, and just so happy for the boys. So thank you.
6th time this year, Scott Hargrove is a winner.
And as Scott mentioned, we were expecting some rain. It has held off here on the streets of Toronto. And there he is, the look at the top 10 finishing, and Michael De Casada coming home in 3rd. Good run for him.
Yeah, it's a good run to come back from yesterday's incident to get that podium spot. But Scott Hargrove, I mean, he definitely made the FAF boys happy. The year before, they had 2 big crashes, destroyed the front of the car, now 2 wins.
Zach, we talked about the fact that the guy to beat was Scott Hargrove. Unfortunately, we finished the race on a yellow, but tell me, how did it go? You beat up your way up there.
Yeah, you know, at the beginning, I don't know, I think I'm going to have to take a school on how to start a race there. A couple of times I've had some bad starts, so I lost out to Michael, and then I got by Michael on the 2nd lap. And I was actually able to close in on him mid-race, but I was, you know, pushing 10 tenths the whole way. We were talking about, you know, throwing it away and just giving everything you had, and I was really the whole time. And again, lap traffic, it is what it is. You know what, he did a really great job all weekend, but I think the Mark Motors cars really performed amazing, and we had the pace, so yeah, it was good.
2nd place finish in Toronto, Zach Robichaud.
And there you see the podium for the Masters division with Porsche Canada Marketing Manager Margareta Malstad.
Yeah, great run for Marco Tironi. Again, another Masters victory.
Those guys love to have fun. Taking a look at the point standings, and Hargrove has opened it up a little bit over Zachary Robichaud.
He has, you can see, 3 points. Again, increased his lead. He got the 1 point for pole, 2 point spread for the win. 20 points for Hargrove, 18 points for Robichaud.
And Michael De Casada there in 3rd spot. Funny, the point standings look very much like the podium here today in Toronto. Big smiles for the top 3. This Porsche Canada GT3 telecast on TSN has been brought to you by Porsche. And as the champagne prepares to be sprayed, our next event from the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières, another street circuit. It's going to be exciting from all of us at Fuel Media Lab. We'll see you there.